All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at the email I sent out earlier that has the recording link and the minutes link. Dia had one clarification to the minutes, which I incorporated and changed already. And so does anybody have any other concerns or questions or things they saw in the minutes that needs to be looked at or discussed? Here they are.
You had me convinced that you weren't a dictator, but I was okay with you being a dictator at that position because we needed to understand the black and white. But anyway, so not an objection, just a clarification.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Heather, for including the part about me being a dictator.
It's my job to transcribe them as accurately as possible.
Right. Benevolent dictators. Don't we need more of those? Matching standards, young adult fiction. The upgrade page. Okay, does anybody have anything going once? Going twice. Do we have a motion to approve?
This is Dia. I'd move to approve the minutes as they have been presented.
Any seconds?
This is Beth. I'll second.
All righty, any discussion? All righty, and are there any objections to approving the minutes? Say nay or forever hold your peace. All righty, hearing none, minutes are approved. Thank you, Heather, for taking those. I'll put you on the spot and ask, are you going to do minutes for this meeting?
I am. I already started.
All right, thank you. So let's start our discussion portion, and let's first of all thank Beth and John for all of their work preparing us for this huge Evergreen upgrade that happened last month. I'd like to give them a little bit of time, if they so choose, to highlight any particular items that we need to be aware of or continuing to work on or things to look out for before we bombard them with our questions, comments, complaints, visions, revelations. Beth, John, anything?
Wow. Something that came up as a screen that looked a lot different was the Mark Batch import export. So I'm going to be putting together a little video tutorial on that specifically because I've had a couple folks approach me about that. And I think later on we're going to look at item alerts. I transferred all of the alert messages that were entered in the old system over to the new item alert field, unless they'd already been moved over with the last upgrade we did to 3.1. So that has been done. Trying to think. We've had some folks just have random strange issues where things weren't displaying on the screen correctly. They weren't seeing options that they thought they should see. A hard refresh of the browser or clearing the cache straightened all those types of stuff up. And those were kind of things where we were seeing something different than they were seeing on their screen. And so that's why I sent that message out to the listserv for something for them to try if they weren't seeing what we were seeing.
I can personally vouch for clearing your cache. I was so scared to do it for a long time, and like Heather says, it's like magic. And just be aware of, if you're doing it in Chrome, that you select your time frame, because I think it defaults to like the cache from last week or last month, and so you may need to clear your cache further than that. in order for it to work. But things just all of a sudden appear in the right places. So if you haven't done that and your OPAC looks strange or you're having other issues, I would definitely second that. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up regarding the January 15th upgrade? Sounds like things are going pretty smoothly for folks. All right, so that kind of is our call for web client issues / problems, unless anybody has anything they were saving for that, because it's kind of all bundled together. If you remember something later on in the meeting, you know.
I do.
Oh,
John,
go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, I have a quick question. Dia showed me how to do the item tags and that they are the digital book plates. It doesn't search as a keyword because I'm using the Libros for Oregon as a digital book plate. So we can show our patrons, hey, these are the ones we've just gotten this year. It'll be 2019. I'm sorry, what?
It's actually a separate search.
Yeah.
So it's in that same drop-down box that you see keyword, but it's digital book plate.
Right. Well, but it doesn't. Okay, from the very original advanced search page, there's if you just type in keyword Libros for Oregon, and then there's no drop down in the item type. I do not believe. I was unable to find it. But when it gives you the no, we can't find it, the next page, like you said, yes, it is there in that drop down, but not this first page, and it won't keyword search it. I was just curious.
John,
Yeah.
under keyword.
Yeah.
Don't go to item type. Go to there, and type in.
Whoa! Check that out. There. Okay, I did not see that.
Yeah.
If I do Libros,
you did it.
What am I going to get?
That's where it is. Thank you. Those are them.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for showing me that. Oh, I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later, but I'm glad you showed me that, Beth, because I was blanking going, oh, where is that again?
Yeah, that's where they chose to put it. And, once we know, it's easy enough to find it, and it is a key location. It's just, it's not something you think about necessarily.
Right. So this is something that, go ahead, Beth.
I wanted to bring up one more thing in case folks have noticed, and this isn't really cataloging oriented, it's more OPAC oriented, but I know that you guys are in the catalog a lot. On the main page, when you go to search the catalog, there's those new book sliders. So yeah, go ahead and bring that up. Is it even displaying right now?
Is it down further on the page? I thought it was on this page. Is it not?
Oh,
or is it on the main OPAC?
Yeah, it's on the main OPAC. Sorry. What I wanted to let you know was that that is not updating. So you see the same book jackets. And the reason is that whole functionality has changed. And there's a bug fix I need to implement in order to turn on the new carousel. They call these carousels, to turn on the new carousels. So it's something I'm working on that will be customized for every view of the catalog. So I just wanted to let you know, in case you noticed that, hey, I entered all these new titles and I'm not seeing them on the recently added items. Yeah, that's why.
I did see something similar to that where you can add items yourself to the carousel.
You can. Right? It's called a manual carousel. And so if there's something specific that your library is wanting to feature, like say Oregon Battle of the Books, or I don't know, maybe there's some special thing that your library's doing, you can add things to a bucket, and then that bucket can be a carousel. So some of that might be blocked to catalogers permission-wise, but it is a possibility, and so this new functionality is pretty exciting because it allows us a lot more customizability for our pages, so that if we're specifically searching, like in Lisa's case, if we're specifically searching Oregon Trail, they would get carousels that were specific to them, that kind of thing. So anyway, just kind of a heads up that I'm working on it, and I hope to get all of those implemented before I have to leave for Thailand on the 12th. So
You're leaving for Thailand?
I am, yeah, on a mission trip for 2 weeks.
That sounds amazing.
It's like you are coming back, right, Beth? No.
Yes, I'm definitely coming back. Not like Anna.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is. I don't know what this does, but we should probably hold off on doing that until Beth figures out what's going on with the carousel, but there that is.
Yeah, right now I don't think it would work.
Yeah, it would just go into the eater, maybe. Alrighty, well, thanks for sharing that. I was curious about what that was myself, but for those of you who haven't seen this or heard about this, this is coming in 2020. There are new ISBN prefixes under the 979 that they announced whenever, a long time ago, that we would see, but we haven't really seen that yet. Well, we're going to start seeing it in 2020. So we want to make sure nobody is surprised or thinks, uh-oh, it's a misprint or something's wrong. So we will see, in addition to 978s that we normally see, we will see 979s. But the thing is, with the 979 ISBNs, there are no 10-digit equivalents. So don't be trying to convert. If you see a 979 and you want to add the 10-digit equivalent into the record, don't do that. Just the 979s for the 13-digit 979 prefixes this year. And I haven't seen really any yet. I'm kind of waiting until I start to see them, but we wanted to give catalogers kind of a heads up so that they don't get surprised seeing these. And I'm trying to remember, where they're already in use in France, Italy, and Korea, and where they're going to be, if it's just us or if it's going to be the UK as well. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I started reading this, but anyway, so catalogers, don't be surprised. Don't think it's a mistake. Don't change it to 978. My goodness. And to make matters even more complicated, you're going to see this at the beginning where the fourth digit is going to be 8. So 979, then 8. So there may be a temptation to think that's a misprint or fat finger syndrome and they accidentally typed 9, so don't delete that out. Anyway, just a general warning, and be on the lookout for that. And if you change anything, we may have to come hunt you down. No, we won't come hunt you down. We'll just send you a strongly worded email. Okay. Something that Legrand has implemented, and other libraries might be interested in this as well, is they are doing kind of a DVD kit, so to speak, with a collection of different movies, and they're calling it a binge box. And they're cataloging it as one item encompassing the whole kit rather than each individual item. So they contacted the mentors trying to figure out what would be the best way to catalog this. And so we put together a template. We, meaning Heather, did most of the work here. And so I'm just bringing this up now just in case any other libraries are interested in doing something like this, or are doing something like this and are curious as to what in the world we do with the MARC record. This is one way to do it, and we think it's fairly accurate and comprehensive. So if you are interested in this, let me know. Send me an email about this, and I can send you this template.
John,
Yes.
do you think that this is going to happen often enough that we need to add this to our group of MARC templates already in the system?
I don't know. That question came to my mind, and I wondered if we wanted to put it in there. I suppose it can't hurt to put it in there unless a cataloger totally doesn't understand that they're supposed to replace text, and so we, get something. That would be my concern.
I would like it in there.
Also, it's very specific. So if it's foreign films or Blu-ray, it needs added fields to this. This is very specifically for
Just
English American
boring
produced, DVDs.
No
Yeah.
nonfiction.
Well, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, the coding of these in that MARC template areas is not, it's all HTML tags by hand. And I'm looking at the length of this and thinking, gosh, this is going to take me forever to type this in. But because every field is separate. So like the tag is a separate field, and the subfields and the indicators and so there's a lot of tagging involved for me to put it in the MARC templates. So
What if we were to put this maybe on the website as availability to copy and paste and then make adjustments as needed?
I think that'd be better, at least initially, till we see how popular it is.
We
That's
could
what I'm
also put supporting text that has all the disclaimers, that use this for this, but if there's, if you're doing any of these things, then it needs to be changed or added to. So I think that's easier to do than as a template in the client.
Absolutely.
I was gonna be doing this because Kathy would like to do this here, and she's gotten all the boxes of the movies and stuff. So this for me, I have no problem altering it or changing it for what I'd need. But right now, for just the basic DVDs, that's a really, really nice way to at least have all of the stuff and take out what you don't need or change. But I really appreciate that. Was hard work.
Well, we went through it a few times, and Heather was like, "Can you look through it again?" And I was like, "Okay."
I made a sample, so I mean, hey.
Yeah, that's there also. So you should, if you want to see what it eventually will look like. I mean, this isn't a real thing. This is just off the cuff here, but. All right, so we'll make that available in one form or another. Lisa, I'll go ahead and send this to you. And if anybody
Just a quick note on the sample. I found an error.
Uh-oh.
Awesome.
Something didn't look like it was lining up right in the 024s. The second one is missing the slash for the second indicator.
Oh, yes. I did fix this. I'm using an older version of this document. But
sure, John.
Why? I fixed that very same error myself once before, so I'm sure
you did.
I pulled up the wrong one. Oops. Okay. We'll make sure that the one that gets on there is the accurate one. Okay, so there goes that. Let's talk a little bit about goals for this coming year. Dun dun dun. So I have agreed to continue to be the chair until my term is up this coming October, when we will pick a new chair for the cataloging committee. And we talked a little bit last week at the mentors meeting about what we wanted to accomplish this year. And I have two particular goals that I would like to get everybody to start thinking about. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to proceed with those. The first is we are going to standardize the procedure for Cat 2 and Cat 1. Well, we're going to develop what those standards are. We're going to develop what the assessments are and the exams are for each permission level. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to write up a proposal this month, and we're going to develop a subcommittee of Cat 1 and Cat 2 catalogers that are going to divide the work up for this. And I'm going to be on that I'm going to be on the subcommittees for all the goals, actually. And I'll have more information, of course, once we get the proposal developed this month and approved at the mentors meeting. But what I would like for everybody here, and I do mean everybody here, is I would like your involvement as, it doesn't matter if you are not a Cat 1 cataloger, your input is important. And I definitely want folks volunteering for every subcommittee that I put together. And it's good to have a healthy mix of input and experience and backgrounds. If that is a little scary to you, or you're not sure what the workload is going to be, this is not going to be a one person gets to do all the work type thing. So what I would want everybody here to do is start thinking about which subcommittee you want to be on. We're going to talk about the next project in a minute, and email me privately afterwards, letting me know which subcommittee you would like to be a part of. Don't make me come hunt you down. I will if I have to. We don't want the subcommittees to be too large, but we do want to be able to spread out the work for everybody. So that is the first goal with and the first subcommittee, Cat 2 and Cat 1 standards. The second goal, we are going to go nuclear, folks, and this year is the year for RDA migration. What does that mean? Well, of course, we're going to have more information when we put together a formal proposal, but we are going to, as a consortium, formally adopt RDA, and so that our new records that we bring into the system are going to be RDA compliant and aren't going to follow the old AACR2 standard anymore for new records being brought in. At least that's the scope of the proposal right now that I haven't put together yet.
Brought in or created.
That's what I meant, yes. And so this is the other subcommittee that I would like people to start thinking about. This one is, I think, bigger, much bigger project than our previous project. However, I do think, well, I know that the work on both of these subcommittees is important. And like I say, I'm hesitant to say too much at this point because it needs to be written down and thought out and discussed and approved at the mentor meeting first before I present anything else. But I'm bringing this up to you all now because I would like you to start thinking about it, and I'd like you to contact me. Now, we all realize, I mean, we have a lot of folks in our cataloging committee, and far too many of them I do not see at all in our committee meetings. How do I put this nicely? I am much more interested in input from those of you that I see in the meeting list every other month. I see some familiar names all the time. And first of all, I want to say thank you for being diligent about your attendance at these committee meetings. And secondly, yours is the input that I'm interested in helping us achieve these 2 goals for the year. All right, that is a lot of words. And like I said, I don't necessarily want to get too far into detail into these goals yet. You're going to see much more information in the, before we get to our next committee meeting. I would like to see at least our committee set for this. You'll see much more on the proposals before our next committee meeting, which of course is in 2 months. Okay, is anybody scared? Oh no, my year just got super busy. Well, I guarantee you folks, my year is going to be a whole lot more busy than yours is, so.
Oh, how John suffers.
Oh, how I suffer. We suffer, we suffer, we suffer. Anybody? No? Okay. So that portion of the meeting's over. Those are my goals for the year. Stay tuned for more information on that. Let's move on to general minders and our call for general cataloging. We're going to talk briefly about 520s, summary fields. And I really only have a couple points to make on this. Oh my God, I'm closing this. I'm opening this up. And let me just open up something, hopefully that will give me a summary field somewhere. We're going to talk specifically about how we source 520s. If the catalog ever decides to cooperate with me. Here we go. Let's see if we can't get let's pull up bars. We have a summary here for 1984. Not on this one. Okay. Well, I'm going to add one. This is ours, right? Okay. So I'm going to go over here to Mark Edit. I don't see a 520. And if any of you are like me, you like to go over to WorldCat for summaries. I use WorldCat a lot for summaries. Let's show you what I'm looking at here. Boy, I could have been a little bit more specific with that, eh? Print book. And let's see, do I get a George Orwell anywhere? That'd be nice. Let's just do this. Okay, print book. And I'm going to go over here. There are, of course, tons of editions of this. I'm going to go view all editions. And I'm going to limit it to print book. Not like the summary is going to matter much for the print book versus the ebook, but all right. And let's see, let's just pull up something here, see if we can't find ourselves. If I would have done this before, I would have had. Okay, so let's take a look at this summary. Now, a lot of times you'll see, provided by a publisher, Amazon, or some kind of other source. And this one, you'll see this often page 4 of cover, which is a really confusing way to say back cover, in my opinion. But I'm just going to grab this. Okay, and I'll put that away. And I'll go over here and add my 520. Now, You may have noticed that when you paste text in from not just WorldCat, but another source, sometimes the text looks a little strange, like that. You notice how the text is different, right? And it's not coming across as plain text. Well, that drives me crazy. So if you, let me cut this, and I'll add this again, 520. If you hold down Shift while you do your Control V, it will paste as plain text, which I like to use. And I'm going to change this to say back cover. Now, you'll see this, but sometimes you'll also see this. Right? Actually, is it C, right? Assigning source? C? How many of you seen this? Right? Or is it actually like this? I'm not sure which one it is. Like that? I think it's this.
And sometimes it says provided by publisher.
Right. Yeah, I see that one probably more often than I see anything provided by publisher.
I've seen both dashes and no dashes.
Right. Yeah. So here's the thing. Technically, according to Sage policy, either one of these methods, I'm not talking about the verbiage here, I'm talking about these methods, having the source in the text versus having it in the separate subfield, is correct. However, the display doesn't display the source when it is a separate subfield. Does that make sense? Now, the reason I want to point out that either one is correct, because I don't necessarily want people going back and changing records from this to this, so to speak. However, it is important to note that this will display in the catalog. Okay? So, and generally we want that source information, especially if it is from a publisher, because as we all know, publishers aren't exactly objective when coming to describing their books, if I can understate it that way.
So if you if you have a provided by the publisher summary and you have that note, but you have edited it by removing all of the pushy stuff, I guess, like the #1 best-selling author, blah, 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 has released this mind-bending new book, do you still put provided by publisher in the C field, essentially, since you technically have edited it and it's, you know?
So if I have this, now I'm going to put this back when I'm done, but provided, published. Provided by publisher or publisher description. Sometimes you'll see that, right? Now, what Heather's talking about is if you edit it, now I haven't read this description here. World where you world. Okay, this is a fairly objective summary, right? But say, just for grins, I'll change something. Let's see. Let's say I do this. Okay, I'm doing this on the fly here, but how many of you seen this? Right? Say the beginning of the sentence says, in this all-time best-selling, best book in the world version of blah, 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 Winston Smith rewrites history for the Ministry of Truth. Well, let's say I try and make it a little bit more objective, and I do this. In this instance, and feel free to correct me, I would then put adapted from publisher description.
If you're just taking out some words and putting the ellipse in, you're not changing it particularly from what the publisher says. You're just not including it all.
Right.
I guess it
How
depends
many?
on how much you would adapt.
Yeah, I think the adapt would work in Heather's situation when you're changing it quite a bit.
And normally when we're changing, we're taking out hyperbolic descriptions, right, in the middle of stuff. Would we agree with that?
Usually at the beginning or the end.
Yeah, usually you'll see that. At least when I do it, when I take stuff out, occasionally I don't get that granular, because when we have the provided by publisher, that lets the reader know that we as catalogers aren't assigning this description. Oh, this is provided by the publisher, so it's going to have some publisher marketing in it.
Does anybody ever read a summary and is like, oh, I think this cataloger specifically thought strongly about this book, instead of, oh, marketing?
No, but it does provide you a little bit of protection against that one patron out there in the world that is going to be mad at you and hold you liable for it, right? All right, now what did I do for this? Help me, folks. This was back cover, right? Back cover.
But do you really want to say that if this isn't actually what's on the back cover of your book?
Well, this is right. I took this from this WorldCat record. And so they've assigned it page 4 of cover, back cover. Now, ideally, folks, I'd have this book in my hand as I'm cataloging it, right? And so then I would see this and flip it over and read the back cover. Now, being familiar with 1984, this is a summary of 1984, we would agree, right? So technically, if I were to pretend that I just wrote this as a summary, I wouldn't need this source as back cover. But the reason I'm keeping that is because this cataloger for WorldCat sourced it here, page 4 of back cover. Is that what you meant, Dia, or what were you asking specifically?
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, but if you're just grabbing something and putting it in your record, if that isn't really your items, or you really want him to keep back cover, even if it's a good summary.
Yes, right. So after I do this, I'd go out there in the stacks, go grab my copy, and then if I needed to adapt this to technically what was on my back cover, I would. Like I said, normally I would have this book sitting in my lap. So I'm not going to save this right here because I don't have this book in my hand, but just to give everybody an idea of what we're talking about with sources. But the main point I wanted to make is not only do we need summaries, but like I said, we do want the source information in there, and either way is correct, but if we want it to display in the OPAC, then we do want to keep the source in here. Because otherwise, you may have seen where it has the summary and then it just has the 2 lines, and it looks really strange, and there's no source.
Well, and I think it's important to speak to the fact that if we are actually taking text from someplace else, like the back cover, we really should give it credit, because it's not something we've created. It's no different than, you know, trying to violate copyright or unintentionally. So I think it's important to note the source.
I have a question. That's a good point, Dia, because a lot of the records that we import don't have any credit. I mean, it's obviously from the back cover because you've compared it. Do we need to add back cover so that
Yeah, we should.
it's clarified?
I think that's good cataloging practice.
Okay, cool. I can do that. Because then we also, of course, have the summary or provided by Goodreads and Amazon. And again, I have to go back to the Spanish books. Sometimes the only summary I can find is from Amazon Mexico, but I do make sure and put Amazon Mexico as the notation. Because a lot of times WorldCat won't have the summaries on these yet.
Yeah, wherever
So
you
it's
take it from is fine.
okay.
We just need to notate it.
Make sure that it's there. And the display is up to the cataloger, or do we prefer it to be patron visible?
Here's the thing. We want to do correct practice, and then if necessary adapt the display to the correct practice. So I'm
Okay.
hesitant to say you have to do it like this when the other
I'm
way
okay
is
with
also correct practice, you know what I mean? But I just
okay.
advise people that either is correct. So if you do it the other way, it's still correct. So nobody's going to fault you for that, but just realize it won't display in the catalog. Does that make sense?
Okay. Thanks. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any other general cataloging issues that they've encountered, want to bring up? I always want to kind of leave time for folks in case they have anything. Not that I know everything. That certainly is not the case, because oftentimes I will say, I'm not sure, I'll go look that up, but we got a lot of knowledge here, and so oftentimes other folks can help out. So anybody want to raise anything? General cataloging concerns before we move on to training? Going once? Going twice? Moving on to training. Okay, we talked a little bit earlier about some item issues. And the first thing I wanted to bring up is that y'all have noticed the verbiage has slightly changed again, right? Let's see, get out of there. Whereas before we used to have copy this, copy that, right? Many of those have been changed to either item, or sometimes they've been changed to holdings. Copy editor, item editor, holdings editor. I've seen holdings editor also. So there's an attempt to kind of change the verbiage to try and be more consistent, which has always been kind of a issue raised with the staff client. And so hopefully we're getting there. Occasionally I will find some things that I'm like, wait a minute, I thought that was called this. But we've talked before about item alerts, and Beth mentioned that she had been migrating over the old alert messages into item alerts. And many of you already know how to add an item alert in the item status, in the edit item screen. Right, so if I go down here and I go to this screen right here, and item alerts down here. But many of you may not have known that you can do that in the item status screen, which I'll kind of show you a little bit what I'm talking about here. I'm going to scan this item. I have no idea what this item is. But over here under alerts, there's manage and 0. And notice I can't click on manage because I don't have any copy alerts, but I can add them. Over here, if I go to add items, call numbers, and items, item alerts. And let me go down to any event, which is the ones that we use. Be careful if you use any of these that you know what they are for and when they will trigger an alert and when they won't trigger an alert. Now, when I add this, what happens? Uh-oh, nothing happens, so it didn't add the alert, right? Wrong. It is actually there, but it won't show up until you refresh the page. However, if you refresh the page, what happens? Bye-bye. So it often is a good idea if you copy the barcode, then you can put it right back in there and see, ah, yes, there is that one alert that I did put in. And now I can manage it if I want to get rid of it. Same deal. Okay, if I do this again, and it's gone. So I don't believe, I haven't tested this with multiple items. Actually, this just occurred to me. I go here. Can I add multiple item alerts? Seems like I can. I'm not going to do it here, but I don't see why that wouldn't work if I just wanted to take the time to enter in those information, enter in those barcodes again to see it. But that is, if that works, that's an easy way to do multiple items. Good to know. Item tags versus item notes. Item tags.
Before you move on, John,
Yes, go ahead.
might just mention Beth recently added that any event, so you don't have to do a check-in and a check-out or multiple whatever other ones you would want that alert to pop up with. So if you're not familiar with it, that's maybe why.
And some of the older ones probably have an alert for check-in and an alert for checkout. Because when we first started with this, we didn't have that any event added to our system. So some of the older ones you may see something different in there, but you could switch it over to any event if you wanted to, or just leave it.
I have this one, I think, set up in my templates when I edit items and add item alerts that way. I think this one sticks because this one includes all of these. Except for renew, right? Renewing an item won't trigger this alert, right? Even if I do any event?
Yes,
Is that
that's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Renew will not.
So is that in the plans to incorporate renewals?
I don't think
under that,
typically it's needed because a renewal is oftentimes done by the patron online. Even if it's done by staff, the item is still out, so there's no need to check for discs or do anything with the item because it's still out with the patron. So that's why it's not listed.
And if you have an particular item in your collection that you don't want it to renew, instead of adding an alert this way, you would then just set it to be not renewable.
That's correct,
right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Where was I? Tags and notes. So tags is something, tags are something that are new. And the idea being that instead of just having notes, copy notes the way we had last time. Of course, they're now item notes though, right? Instead of copy notes, they're now item notes. We now have...
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, tags and notes. So as far as I know, item notes still function the same way that the old copy notes function, right? They're just informational only. And you can set them to display in the OPAC, right?
Yeah, you can set them. If you check the box public note, it will display in the OPAC. So it's a good way to add some information to a particular item that gives more clarification. And if it's something you want to show to the patrons, then you do the public note.
Just like that. Now, if you are wanting to have something that is more searchable, we looked at this a little bit earlier under the digital bookplate option in the main search. This is another way that you can add somewhat more local information. If your library has a particular local collection that you want to be able to be searchable, but it's not something that you would put in the MARC record because that's a consortium-wide thing and that wouldn't be an appropriate place to put that. For example, we were talking at the mentors meeting. Our library used to have a film club that would meet to watch and discuss certain films, and so we had a particular, I forget what the terminology was. I don't know if it was film club or Baker County local film buffs or something, whatever it was. But that would be a way that we could allow them to collocate items together from the OPAC, and they could find those easily without really disturbing anything consortium-wide. That would be a way to do that. We would just tag all of those specific items in our catalog with whatever tag we wanted, and then it would be searchable. So,
Might note that if you do use that, you want to make sure you use consistent terminology, though, or it will be all over the place.
That's right.
Trying to search too.
If you use if you use inconsistent terminology, your patrons aren't going to be able to find it very easily. Well, they will find some of them, right? But they may not be able to find all of them.
It lets you choose the tag. Once you make one of those, the item tag, when I made the Libros for Oregon 2019, it puts it up at the very top. And then when you're in your actual template, you have a drop down. When you hit that view edit item tags, this pops up, but it's got like selections. You can store 3 or 4 item tags in there and then choose the one you want for your template or for your item. However you're making it work.
Now, Beth, I can delete this.
I've played. Thanks, Dia.
There yes, you can.
Okay.
Right.
So. All right. Tags and notes. Baskets versus buckets. Have you all used the baskets yet at all in your circulation duties? Or calling things in as a cataloger? If you haven't yet, let's see. Let's go. Let me just open a new.
Well, baskets are brand new with this version of the software. So patrons now can see the basket option in their view, and we have it as well. We have the additional ability to convert a basket into a bucket, though, which is a nice staff function.
Now, I was going to ask you about that, Beth. Let's say I grab all of these 29 items here. 29 selected titles, and over here you can see the 29 in my basket here. And I would not be able to place 29 holds, but these are the different options you have available to you. I could send this away to myself to remember later. But if I go add basket to bucket, this is going to add it to a record bucket, right? These are my record buckets.
Yes, it's going to add it to a record bucket.
Not to an item bucket, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if I wanted to add something to an item bucket, these are my item buckets over here. What's the best way to do that? Is that here?
This is one of the easiest ways. It depends on if you've got a bunch of books next to you that you can scan in, or yeah, that's probably the easiest. Otherwise, you'd have to go through and go to holdings for each of the bibs. Because you can do it from the holdings area as well, but I think item status is the most direct.
So if I wanted to do, now when I select all here, it selects all of this bit too. which isn't the same as doing this, right?
I'm not sure whether it would affect it or not. Since there's nothing displaying there, I wouldn't think it would care, but I haven't tried it.
Okay, so these are my different item buckets here. And I noticed as I was looking at this earlier, this is my missing items bucket. I noticed I have one that's available, which means it isn't missing anymore. So I'm going to take that one out of my bucket. Interesting. So I've got more experimentation to do with these, as you can tell. I mean, I have used record buckets and item buckets all the time, but just know that when we're talking about basket, it's easy to confuse verbiage of basket versus bucket, right? They're two different things and do two different functions here. But we can add these items. It's just a little confusing to me because I think 29 items, but these aren't 29 items. These are actually 29 records with multiple items.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
I've never actually done this. Look
and
at
so if a patron went to place holds, they would be placing title level holds.
Oh, yes, good point. Right. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take these out of my basket since I don't need that many copies of 1984, as much as I love that book. Confirm. All right, so we've come to the end of our agenda. Wow, that was pretty good timing. Just before we go, just let me remind you one more time about these two subcommittees and just give some thought as to what you would like to be involved in. I'm sure it's going to be a learning experience for all of us, but I do want to encourage you to start thinking about that and to email me, let me know what you would like to be a part of, and we'll have more information on these coming out steadily in the next few weeks leading up until our next meeting, which is April, let's see, April 6th is going to be our next committee meeting.
And while you're thinking about it, you should do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sooner rather than later, otherwise you'll forget and then I'll have to come chase you down. Okay, everybody, anybody else have anything for the good of the cause before we adjourn today? Going once, going twice. Hearing nothing, I will call us to adjourn and I will be in touch. I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, everybody.